The word we're going to talk about today is modernisation, spelt two ways, M-O-D-E-R-N-I-Z-A-T-I-O-N, or replace the Z with an S. Well, you'd often see the word in relation to a house. Somebody modernises a house, puts in a new kitchen, central heating system, or you might see it in relation to the modernisation of the postal service, which ordinarily would mean updating, making new, introducing new technologies and things like that. The word comes from the Latin modo, which means just now. There's also modus, which means a certain style or manner of doing things, but really modernisation means just now, the current thing. Okay, well the word modern is actually a strange word because sometimes it's difficult to use now for current times, and we often use the word contemporary art rather than modern art, and that's because the word modern has really become associated with a very specific age. It's quite difficult to periodise that, but you could generally talking from sort of 17th, 18th, 19th centuries with the great democratic revolutions and the move towards rationalism and science and the radical innovations in literature and art that became known as modernism. So modernity was seen as a new age that was getting rid of the old. It was getting rid of, let's say, knowledge dominated by faith rather than reason. It was getting rid of an old feudal system that was based on landlords and serfs and rent, and an old aristocracy. Of course, the French got rid of their aristocracy in their revolution. So it's a radical and dramatic change into a sort of a new age is how we normally understand modernity. What's interesting about modernisation is the way it's used today. As I've already suggested, it's supposed to mean updating something and making something current, but increasingly it's becoming a euphemism for privatisation. Modernisation means nothing more, certainly in terms of sort of social and economic institutions, than privatising, deregulating, opening up to market forces, and of course opening up a wider global market. Now what's interesting here is that under the structures of globalisation, we have a form of governance that's quite radically different from what emerged out of the democratic revolutions of modernity. We're now governed by a largely unaccountable transnational aristocracy, or a new aristocracy, that one could say are seriously undermining the democratic advances of the age of modernity. And in that sense, we could say that we are possibly no longer modern. There are people who think that the future is nothing but privatisation and deregulation. I mean, that's where we are. We live in an age that's called the end of history. We believe that we have solved the answer to what is the good society and what are human beings and how should they live, and we've decided that that's the free market, and all we need to do now is roll it out. So many people believe that this is the one and only answer to all our ills, and modernisation is the extension of this model to every aspect of social life and every culture. Modernisation is used as a veil, if you like, for privatisation, because for many people, particularly in the UK, who have a strong sense of social democracy and public services, privatisation is still rather problematic. The term modern, I think, really came into common currency at the turn of the 20th century. So the 1910s and 1920s, when people began to think of themselves as thoroughly modern. I would say that modernisation was probably a term that came into more popular usage after the Second World War. Obviously, a world has been practically destroyed. Europe is devastated, and there's a new era. There's definitely a change after the Second World War, and modernisation came into popular parlance then, particularly through the 50s and the 60s when people started nailing bits of hardboard to old Victorian doors.